Hello, welcome to the Fantastic Fiction at KGB reading series. Fantastic Fiction is a monthly speculative fiction reading series held on the third Wednesday of every month, hosted by Ellen Datlow and me, Matthew Kressel. We spotlight well-known and up-and-coming science fiction, fantasy, and horror authors, and admission is always free. We publish a monthly podcast and video so people who can't attend the in-person event can still enjoy the readings. If you'd like to support the series, you can donate at kgbfantasticfiction.org/support. Anyway, on to the show.
All right, we're going to get started. I imagine some of you are somewhat surprised to see me up here instead of Matt. No, you're not at the wrong reading. I'm guest hosting at another reading next week. But here we are. Unfortunately, Matt Kressel is sick this evening, so let's all send her good wishes. And this is the June installment of KGB Fantastic Fiction here at historic KGB Bar. A long-running fantastic fiction reading series that's been going on, I believe, since 1994. And we're all glad to see you here tonight. And please remember to show your appreciation for being here by buying a drink, hard or soft, and tipping Mary, our bartender, extremely heavily, because that's how they let us stay here. So that's kind of awesome.
Drinks.
And tonight we have two fantastic readers, obviously, because it's fantastic fiction. We have Nicholas Kaufmann and recent Stoker winner, A.C. Wise. So it's going to be a great night. Our first reader tonight is going to be Nick Kaufmann, and it's really thrilling for me to be here to introduce him specifically because I go to a lot of readings, as people here know, and not all of them stick in my head. But the first time I saw Nick here at KGB Bar reading from Chasing the Dragon, I was absolutely mesmerized, and I've loved his work ever since. So it's great for me to introduce him. Nicholas Kaufmann has been a finalist for the Bram Stoker Award, the Shirley Jackson Award, the Thriller Award, and the Dragon Award. Two of his novels, 100 Fathoms Below, co-written with Stephen L. Kent, and The Hungry Earth, were Amazon and Barnes & Noble bestsellers. His latest book is the collection Monuments in Darkness. He also co-hosts the strange but true science podcast, Spooky Science Lab, which is a lot of fun, incidentally, so you should listen to it, with author David Wellington. Nick Kaufmann.
And Nick has books to sell.
I do have books to sell, yeah.
So many.
Wow, this space back here is made for people with smaller butts than me. Thank you. I've said too much. It's an honor to be back here at the KGB Bar reading for this particular series. So thank you all for coming very much. I appreciate it. So the story I'm going to read was first published in a magazine called Cosmic Horror Monthly, which is a great name. And it's also available in my collection, Monuments in Darkness, which I have a few copies here for sale, if you're interested. The story is called Lucienne. During the whole of the dull, dark, and soundless time that Ray was unconscious, he dreamed he was back at Romano's with the guys. They were in their usual booth, talking shit and cooking up plans around the beer-slicked wooden table, a haze of cigarette smoke in the air. Then Ray stuttered awake, blinking his eyes against a painfully bright light. He wasn't at the bar. He was sitting in the kitchen of someone's house. A kitchen so much bigger and cleaner than the filthy, cluttered kitchenette of his studio apartment that at first he didn't know where he was. It took a moment for the events of the evening to come back to him. He was still in the house he'd broken into, the house that was supposed to be empty but clearly wasn't. "Good, you're awake," a voice said. Ray's eyes focused on the old man who sat across from him. He was in his 70s with a shaggy mop of gray hair and a beard to match. He was fat, too, with a wide girth that filled the chair to overflowing. A bird cage hung from the ceiling behind him, and inside it a canary sat on a wooden perch and watched Ray with black, beady eyes. The clock on the kitchen wall read 11:30. Shit, Ray thought. How long had he been unconscious? He'd left Romano's a little after 8 and couldn't have gotten to the house much later than 8:30. You picked the wrong house to rob, kid, the old man said, and definitely on the wrong night. Ray cursed under his breath. The guys had told him no one would be home. Did they get their facts wrong, or was this a setup? A way to screw the new guy by sending him to rob a house they knew wasn't empty. The house belonged to a fence named Visconti, one of the best in the business, and they told him there were all sorts of loot for the taking in the vault in his basement. Jewelry, electronics, antiques, all easy pickings. Those sons of bitches. He should have known it was too good to be true. Still, the old man wasn't holding a gun on him, which Ray took as a good sign. Once he got out of there, he could give those old, washed-up mafia assholes at Romano's a piece of his goddamn mind. He tried to get up, but his arms were bound behind the chair with thick ropes. More ropes encircled his torso in a complex web that ended with a noose-like coil around his neck. The noose wasn't tight, but its presence made him feel nervous. He strained against the ropes, trying to pull his arm free. Don't bother, the old man said. You're not the first person I've tied up. I know how to do it right. A knife-like pain cut through the back of Ray's head, fading to a dull throb. The fuck happened to me? A little bump on the head, that's all. I learned a long time ago it's easier to tie someone up when they're unconscious. They don't struggle. Where had this fat old bastard come from? There'd been no sign of him when Ray first got to the house. It was dark and quiet, no lights on, nothing. It looked as empty as the guys told him it would be, so he jimmied open the sliding glass patio doors and back. He waited a moment for the shrill klaxon of a burglar alarm to sound, but none came. Downstairs, at the electronically locked door to the vault, he punched in the code the guys gave him, and sure enough, the door opened. Inside was a treasure trove of Visconti's loot. Ray had stood stunned in the doorway like a kid given the run of a candy store before he busied himself shoving anything that looked valuable into his duffel bag. When the bag was full, he made his way back to the patio doors, but that was where his memories ended. The old man, who could only be Visconti himself, must have been hiding in the dark and clubbed him on the back of the head, which meant he'd already been hiding with the lights out when Ray got there, waiting for him. The thought put a knot in his stomach. There was only one way Visconti could have known he was coming. The guys at Romano's had given him a heads up. Maybe it wasn't a setup. Maybe it was some kind of initiation, a trial by fire. The thought made him sit a little taller in the chair. After all, they wouldn't bother putting him through a rite of passage like this if they didn't intend to make him one of their own, would they? That was all he'd ever wanted, to be one of them, but it was hard to join the mafia when you weren't Italian. Being poor, Irish, and not from the neighborhood didn't help. The guys loved to rib him. They called him Leprechaun, Mick, and Paddy, but still they never kicked him out of Romano's, never told him he couldn't drink with them. As the whiskey flowed, they regaled him with the stories of the good old days when the Italian families ruled this part of New Jersey, and even though he knew they would never elevate someone like him to a made man, he still hoped one day they would make him an official part of their crew. When they told him about the fence's house sitting empty, just waiting for a thief like him to take advantage, he jumped at the chance to prove himself to them. They must have known he would. He'd made it all too easy for them to set up this little prank. Real funny, Pops, Ray said, but the joke's over, okay? You hit me too hard. My head hurts like hell. I should probably get it looked at. You think this is funny? Visconti said. Breaking into my house, trying to steal my shit? You think that's funny? Ray watched Visconti's face, waiting for him to crack a smile or laugh reassuringly, but his angry expression didn't change. The silence stretched out, growing heavier with each passing second as the two men stared at each other from their chairs. Ray's confidence slipped. Maybe he had this wrong. Maybe this wasn't a prank. Fine, you caught me, you win, Ray said, trying to sound properly contrite. I've heard about you, Visconti. You're the best fence in the state, but you didn't get where you are without being smart. The smart thing to do now would be to turn this situation to your advantage. A man in your position could probably use someone to do his legwork. I could be that someone for you. Pay off my debt for trying to rob you. Just tell me what you want me to do. If there was one thing Ray had always been good at, it was fast talking. It had saved his ass more than once. He could talk his way into any establishment, any crew. Hell, he'd talked his way into Romano's, hadn't he? But Visconti was unmoved. Holding Ray's wallet in one beefy hand, the old man opened it and looked at the ID inside. Your name's Ray Quinn, Visconti said. Look at that, you've still got your Boston's driver's license. You're a long way from home, Irish. I'm surprised no one taught you not to bring your ID on a job. If the cops catch you, it'll take them exactly 2 seconds to find out who you are. It's a rookie mistake. It tells me you haven't been in the game very long. The fat old man leaned back in his chair, shifting his considerable bulk, and stuffed the wallet into his pants pocket. Ray fumed. He wasn't stupid. Of course he knew better than to bring his ID on a job. It was just that this job had come out of nowhere, an unexpected blink-and-you'll-miss-it opportunity. There hadn't been any time to prepare. What are you, 19, 20? Visconti asked. 22. Of course you are. He leaned his bulk toward Ray, breathing heavily as though even the small shift in position had left him winded. Listen up, Irish. I've been a fence since before you were born. Hell, I made my first sales when your dad was still in high school jacking off to pictures of Kathy Ireland. Who? He rolled his eyes. Christ, don't make me hate you more than I already do. You young shits. Back in the day, we knew how to play the game, but you new guys, you never stopped being juvenile delinquents. You're all hotheads. You have no discipline, no respect for those who came before. You don't even know what's worth stealing and what's not. Case in point, I bet you don't know what this is. He picked up a hardcover book from the floor next to his chair, a thick volume bound in leather, its pages edged in gold. Ray remembered seeing it in the vault, but it hadn't looked like anything, so he'd left it behind. It's a book, Ray said. He would have shrugged if it weren't for the ropes. Nobody gives a shit about books anymore. The look Visconti gave him could have cut glass. Don't make me hit you on the head again, Irish. This isn't just any book. Ray looked at it more closely. The title was stamped into the thick brown leather of the cover in gold letters. Complete Stories and Poems of Edgar Allan Poe. Visconti flipped through the pages. Ray was surprised at how gingerly his thick, sausage-like fingers treated the thin paper. I've read this book a lot since it came into my possession, cover to cover and back again. And you know what I discovered? Poe was obsessed with dead women. Half the shit he wrote about is women who died and men who are too hung up to let them go. Morella, Ligeia, Berenice, Annabel Lee. He loved writing stories about dead women, but more than that, he loved naming stories after dead women. He stopped turning the pages and smiled. Ah, here we go. Out of all the stories in this book, this one's my favorite. The Fall of the House of Usher. It was her favorite, too. Ray squinted at him. Her? The original owner of the book, he said. I must have read Usher a dozen times. You probably read it in school, yeah? Ray hadn't bothered much with schoolwork and hadn't stuck around high school past his sophomore year anyway. What was the point when there were plenty of crews in Southie hiring school-aged kids as mules and runners? It was easy work that got him respect on the streets and a pocket full of cash. Never heard of it, he said. He twisted and wriggled his wrists behind the chair. The ropes bit into his skin, but he kept the pain from showing on his face. The best thing he could do was keep the old man talking while he worked to slip out of the ropes. What's it about? Visconti grinned like he was hoping Ray would ask. A guy goes to visit his childhood friend, Roderick Usher, only to find he lives in a shitty old house, and worse, he's a complete nutcase. So is Roderick's sister Madeline, who dies while the guy is visiting. So they bury her, but Roderick is terrified that Madeline is going to come back from the grave to kill him. The guy tries to tell him it ain't possible, but Roderick doesn't believe him. Visconti read a passage out of the book. Have I not heard her footsteps on the stair? Do I not distinguish that heavy and horrible beating of her heart? Madman, I tell you, she now stands without the door. Visconti stared at Ray, but if he was expecting a reaction, Ray didn't give him one. So, the doors blow open with a gust of wind, and it turns out he's fucking right, Visconti said. He read another passage out of the book. But then, without those doors, there did stand the lofty and enshrouded figure of the Lady Madeline of Usher. With a low, moaning cry, she fell heavily inward upon the person of her brother and bore him to the floor, a corpse. Ray stopped twisting his wrists in the rope and shuddered. The story was pretty tame compared to those Purge movies he liked. But something about it got under his skin. "That's fucked up," he said. "It's just a story, Irish. Just harmless words. That's what we tell ourselves, isn't it? That stories can't hurt us?" Visconti slammed the book closed. "No, the fucked up thing is that you went through the vault looking for shit to steal. You didn't bother looking at the book. If you had, you would have seen this." He opened the front cover to reveal white end papers on which someone had written in black ink, "For my darling daughter Lucienne, on the occasion of your 11th birthday. Sorry I missed your party. I'll make it up to you. Daddy promises. All my love, Sal Toscani." Holy shit, Ray blanched. He'd heard the name before from the guys at Romano's during their stories of the glory days. Sal Toscani was a legend. "You can say that again. I worked for him back in the day. I knew him and his family well." "No shit, really?" "Keep him talking," Ray told himself, and went back to trying to loosen the ropes. He felt a coil slacken around one wrist. Not enough to shake off the ropes, but it was a start. Visconti shifted his weight in the chair with considerable effort. His daughter, Lucienne, there was something wrong with that girl. You could tell just by looking at her. As tall and skinny as a scarecrow, with straight black hair that came all the way down her back. Long, long nails painted jet black. But the creepiest thing about her was her eyes. They were as dark as midnight, and it felt like she was looking right into you, all the way to your soul. I'll be damned if I ever saw that girl blink. Visconti looked down at the leather-bound volume in his lap. Lucienne loved this book more than anything in the world. I think she liked the way Poe wrote about obsessive characters because it was like a mirror for her. She was obsessive about a lot of things herself. Her room had to be just so. She had to run a comb through her hair a specific number of times. But she was especially obsessed with this book. She wouldn't let anyone else touch it. She took it with her wherever she went, even as an adult. She was never without it when she was alive. The ropes around Ray's arms loosened more. He was almost there. "So she died?" Visconti nodded. The night before her wedding, she was murdered by Tommy Costanzo, a young hothead who was looking to prove himself to the higher-ups in his family. He shot her dead in the hotel where she was staying. June 13th, 1999. I'll never forget it. June 13th, Ray thought. Why did that date sound so familiar? Tommy Costanzo tried to make it look like a robbery gone bad, took her jewelry, her money, and her big purse she always carried with her, Visconti went on. I don't think he knew the book was in her purse when he took it. I think he just grabbed everything and ran. There's no way he could have known how valuable it was. If he'd bothered to check, he would have discovered the leather was genuine, the gilding on the pages and the stamp on the cover were done in real gold. But what made it really valuable was the fact that Sal Toscani had signed it to his daughter himself. The big man's signature made it a one-of-a-kind addition. To the right person, it would be worth tens of thousands of dollars. Ray was disappointed in himself that he'd passed it over so quickly in the vault, but his disappointment died as soon as the rope slid off his raw and bleeding wrists. Before he could move, the loosened coils triggered a response in the complex web of ropes that somehow slipped the noose tighter around his neck. Ray choked and clawed at the rope. Visconti taunted, waving a pudgy finger at him. I told you I know how to tie a man up properly. He tied Ray's hands behind his back again, releasing the pressure on his neck. Ray coughed and gasped until he was breathing normally once more. Visconti sat down. You gonna behave now? Because I need you to listen to what I'm telling you. It's important. Ray nodded mutely. He was fucked and he knew it. At least Visconti was still talking instead of putting a bullet in Ray's head. After Lucienne died, Sal was out of his mind with grief. He went after Tommy Costanzo to have his revenge, as was his right. But the Costanzos moved Tommy far away to protect him. Sal couldn't reach him. It drove him crazy that he couldn't kill the man who'd murdered his daughter, but it turned out he didn't have to. A year after Lucienne's murder, 1 year to the day, in fact, June 13th, 2000, the anniversary of her death. The police found Tommy Costanzo dead in his house down the shore. He had scratches all over him like he'd been attacked by a wild animal. They said his eyes were still open and he had the look of sheer terror on his face, like the last thing he saw put the fear of God in him. Sal spent every day since Lucienne's funeral going to the cemetery and sitting on the steps of the family crypt to pay his respects. On the day Tommy Costanzo was found dead, Sal went to the crypt as usual, but this time, through the bars of the gate, he saw something on the floor inside. It was Lucienne's book, the one Tommy had taken. Ray looked up at Visconti. His throat was still too raw for him to speak, but his disbelief must have registered in his eyes. "Hand to God," Visconti insisted. "We Italians are superstitious. The devil, the evil eye, all that shit. We believe a loaf of bread has to be put on the table face up or it's bad luck. We believe a bird inside the house means someone's going to die. We're crazy like that." Ray glanced nervously at the bird cage hanging from the kitchen ceiling. The canary stared back at him with eyes as round and black as the barrel of a gun. Visconti followed his gaze to the bird cage and chuckled. "Relax, Irish. The superstition is about a bird loose in the house, not in a cage. That's why I never let her out. Ain't that right, Sophia?" He made whistling noises at the bird. It ignored him and pecked tiny pellets out of its bowl. "I named her after my mother, like any good Italian boy would. Unfortunately, she won't sing for me, won't even chirp, no matter how much I ask. Women, right? They don't give a shit what anyone else wants. That's why I live in this big house by myself. Never found a broad worth shacking up with." Ray swallowed painfully through his bruised throat. There was no doubt in his mind now that Visconti was going to kill him. There was clearly something wrong with the old man. Dementia, maybe. It didn't matter. Ray had to get free of these damn ropes. He had to kill Visconti before Visconti killed him. "Anyone else may have taken the book home with him for sentimental reasons, but not Sal," Visconti said. "Being properly superstitious, he left it in the crypt. After all, it was Lucienne's book, not his, and in life she had loved it more than anything." Sal died a few years later. He was only 68. The Costanzos never got him. It was his ticker that did him in. So Gina, his widow, started visiting the family crypt every day in his place, paying her respects to her husband and her daughter. One day, she found the crypt had been broken into. All the tombs inside had been busted open. The thief took everything he could carry, jewelries, watches, rings, even Lucienne's book. This was no random robbery. The name Toscani was written as big as can be over the crypt's door. And believe me, back then everyone knew the name. Whoever broke in knew exactly who they were stealing from. Gina figured it had to be some new hothead looking to make a name for himself, not unlike you, Irish, since no one else would dare to rob them so brazenly. And desecrating the dead like that? Forget about it. She called the whole family together to hunt this fucker down, but nobody knew who it was. The grave robber didn't belong to any of the other families. Nobody could find the guy. They waited for him to slip up, to start bragging to his buddies or trying to sell the loot in town, but it never happened. Eventually, other things took priority, and Gina gave up the search. I'm telling you, that thief was the fucking luckiest man on the planet. Ray glared at Visconti. His throat burned where the rope had strangled him. His wrists stung where the ropes rubbed them bloody. All he could think about was getting free and killing this fat son of a bitch with his bare hands just so he wouldn't have to listen to him talk anymore. However, Visconti continued, a few months later, the police got called to a house across town. Inside, they found a dead body, a young Spanish guy with a history of break-ins and burglaries. They said he had scratches all over him, just like Tommy Costanzo, and the same look of terror in his face. All his belongings were scattered like somebody had tossed the joint, so the cops assumed it was a robbery. That same day, Gina Toscani went to the family crypt as usual, and what do you think she saw through that gate sitting on the floor inside the crypt? Ray shook his head. He laughed, either out of disbelief or spite, or because he was losing his mind tied to this fucking chair. The laughter hurt his throat, and he stopped. Hand to God, the book was back just like before. And the date? June 13th, the anniversary of Lucienne's death. Poor Gina nearly had a heart attack, like her husband Sal. Unfortunately, she wasn't superstitious like him, so she took the book home with her. Not for sentimental reasons. No, she was ice cold, that woman. She took it because she knew it was valuable with Sal's inscription inside. That was a big mistake, because 1 year later, come on, Ray rasps, enough with this bullshit already. 1 year later, on June 13th, Gina Toscani was found dead in her house, Visconti continued. They said she was lying on the floor of her bedroom, all scratched up, eyes wide open and terrified, just like the others. The house had been ransacked. This time the police assumed it was a hit job, masquerading as a robbery, but there were two problems with that theory. First, no one would dare go after Sal Toscani's widow. Even the Costanzas wouldn't sink so low. It's just not done. Second, something had been taken from the house. He tapped the book in his lap. This is bullshit, Ray said. Of course it's bullshit. It's all bullshit, Visconti told him. It's just another story, right? People in our line of business love to tell stories. The dead body that disappeared. The stoolie they were sure they'd killed but who showed up in court the next day. The guy who stole his dead grandma's ring off her finger and then was mauled to death by her dozen cats. Everyone's got stories. Even Poe's got his dead woman's stories. But sometimes there's truth in those stories. And sometimes, even if there isn't, a story can leave an echo in the world, some part of itself that sticks around. The murders of Tommy Costanzo, the grave robber, and Gina Toscani really happened, just the way I told you. So, how can we know? How can we be sure what's real and what's not? He turned his chair to look at the clock. It was 10 minutes to midnight. The thing is, Irish, I've been a fence for a long time now, he said. Over the years, better thieves than you have brought me all sorts of loot. Most of it I could move pretty quickly and for a good price. But imagine you're me, and after someone drops off their shit, you find Lucien's book mixed in with the rest. Imagine finding it and knowing exactly what it is, exactly who it belonged to, knowing its story. I'm stuck with the damn thing. I can't sell it. It's got value, but everyone who would buy it on the black market already knows its history and won't touch it. I can't donate it to the library or leave it at a bus stop because it's got Sal Toscani's goddamn name inside. Believe me, people still know that name in this town, and if it's ever traced back to me, well, let's just say I would be forced to answer for some things I'd really rather not. I can't burn it or bury it or rip it up because that won't save me, you understand? It'll only make her angrier. Make her angrier, Ray scoffed. You don't really buy into this shit, do you? Visconti met his eye, his gaze hard as steel. We're all animals in the end, Irish. We like to think we're something more, but we're kidding ourselves. When an animal is faced with danger, its fight or flight instincts take over. It's the same with people. It's built into us. But what if you can't do either? What if it's something you can't fight and something you can't run from? What then? Ray was wrong. Visconti wasn't suffering from dementia. The old man was straight up crazy. It was only a matter of time before he tried to kill Ray. He had to get free, but the ropes held him fast, and he knew if he slipped them off his wrists again, the noose would tighten around his neck. There had to be another way, but he couldn't think straight. Visconti's story had him all turned around. Come midnight, Visconti said. It'll be June 13th. Fuck, Ray thought. That's why the date sounded so familiar. It was tomorrow. Circumstances being what they are, I did the only thing I could, Visconti said. I set a trap. See, my buddies at Romano's told me there was a new young thief in town, a Mick from Boston looking for a big score to make a name for himself. So I had them tell you a story about an empty house with a vault full of loot just waiting to be plundered. The fat old man shook his head, his face reddening with anger. Only you didn't take the fucking book. You were supposed to take it home with you, but instead you just left it in the vault like an idiot. So I was forced to improvise. The guys told me you weren't too bright. They didn't lie. Fuck you, Ray snarled, and fuck all this bullshit. Visconti stood, groaning as he lifted his heavy bulk. Ray shrank back in the chair. Don't you fucking touch me. It's not me you gotta worry about, Irish. Visconti dropped the book into Ray's lap. It felt unnaturally heavy, as if its pages were crowded with memories, with the crushing weight of obsession. The old fence took another length of rope off the kitchen counter and tied the book to Ray's lap. securing it with a tight knot under the chair seat. Every year, on the anniversary of her death, Lucienne goes looking for her book, and God help anyone who has it in their possession, he said. She doesn't care who it is. She killed her own damn mother to get the book back. This time, it ain't gonna be me she finds it with. The old man opened the door in the back of the kitchen. Ray saw unfinished plaster walls in the room beyond, smelled oil and gasoline, the garage. Come on, Visconti, we can make a deal, Ray called after him. I'm a good thief when I'm not being set up. You know you could use someone like me on your crew. Just untie me so I can kill you, you fat piece of shit, he thought. Let me go and tell me what you want me to do. What I want you to do, Visconti said. You're already doing it. Ciao, Irish. The old man closed the door behind him. A few seconds later, Ray heard the automatic garage door open. A car started, then pulled out into the driveway. The garage door hummed closed, but he could still hear the car as it drove away. The clock on the wall said it was 5 minutes to midnight, 5 minutes to June 13th. Ray struggled in his ropes, but stopped as soon as the coil tightened around his neck again. He looked down at the book tied to his lap, Collected Stories and Poems of Edgar Allan Poe. One of a kind, valuable, and yet no one wanted it. He knew the feeling. He'd been a fool to believe the mafia guys at Romano's would ever accept some young Irish punk as one of their own. The clues had been there all along, the way they spoke down to him and called him names, but he'd believed the lie because he wanted to. The story Visconti told him was a lie, too. It had to be. Even if the old fence believed it himself, he's already admitted he was superstitious by nature, and superstitions had nothing to do with the real world. Ray's grandmother had tossed salt over her shoulder for good luck her whole life, and she still ended up drooling and shitting herself in a nursing home. Ray had never tossed so much as a single grain of salt over his shoulder, and he was doing just fucking fine, thank you very much. Although he would be doing a lot better if he could just get out of these damn ropes. If he couldn't slip the knots without strangling himself, his only other option was to break the chair and hope for the best. He rocked back and forth until the chair's front legs were off the floor, but he couldn't get it to fall backward. The chair dropped onto its front legs again. It didn't break, but he winced as the shock waves set off a dull throb in his head. He glanced up at the clock. 2 minutes to midnight. Visconti was just trying to scare him. It was about in about half an hour, the fat old fence would probably come back with the guys from Romano's in tow, and they would all have a good laugh at Ray's expense. Depending on how he played his cards, they might just bring him into the crew after all. Ah, fuck, who was he kidding? Visconti wasn't coming back, and the guys sure as hell weren't going to take him in after setting him up like this. Once Ray got himself free, he would make those assholes pay. He'd go back to Romano's tomorrow night, all smiles and handshakes like everything went off without a hitch, but he'd bring his .45 with him, tucked into the back of his pants. From inside the bird cage, the canary let out a peculiar, high-pitched trill. It flapped its wings and flitted from the perch to the floor of the cage, then to the edge of its food bowl, and then back to the perch. All the while it warbled and fluttered in a panic. Visconti said the bird never made a sound, and now it wouldn't shut the fuck up. Another lie from the fat prick. The bird quieted for a moment, and in the silence Ray heard something else. The soft, muffled sound of scratching. It came from somewhere behind him. The front door. Something was scratching at the front door. A stray cat, probably. That was why the bird was going crazy. The cat wanted in. But it didn't sound like a cat. The scratches were slow and methodical, the way a person might do it. He thought of Lucienne's long black fingernails. He thought of Roderick Usher's dead sister Madeline. Madman, I tell you, she now stands without the door. The scratching grew louder, more frenzied. This is bullshit. It's Visconti. He's back and fucking with me. Probably drove his car around the block. The canary went crazy, fluttering all around the birdcage, hurling itself against the bars. It's just a story, he muttered under his breath. He rocked the chair again, trying fruitlessly to break it. It's just a fucking story. The panicking canary threw itself against the bars over and over until finally the birdcage door burst open. Behind Ray, the front door burst open at the same time, as if from a strong, sudden gust of wind. But there was no wind at his back, only a cool breeze of night air that brought with it a terrible smell, Good God, the smell. The bird flew from its cage. Loose in the house for the first time, it circled the kitchen in celebration of its newly unfettered state, then bolted across the living room and out to its freedom, past the lofty and enshrouded figure that stood outside the door. Thank you. That's the book. I have a few copies.
Hello there. Whoops. We're about to start the second half. Hello. Shh. Hey, come on. Sit down. Drink and be quiet. Shh. Come on. Whoop. Come on. No.
Talking.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. Before we start, I want to thank Amy, who I've never where'd you go?
Hi.
Oh, there you go. I've never co-hosted with you before, and it's fun. Hi there.
I like it.
Yeah. Over the next few months, I just want to mention some of our readers. July 8th, we have Sam Rebelin and Victor Manibo. Again, I keep thinking I'm pronouncing it wrong, and I keep asking me, is it right, Manibo?
Yes.
Thank you. I think you read it before, but I wasn't here that time. Anyway, August 12th, Suzanne Palmer and Kaylee Peterson. September 9th, Jeffrey Ford and John Foster. Raise your hand. October 14th, we have Carrie Edmund Laban, who's not here, sorry, and someone else. November 11th, James Patrick Kelly and Stephanie Feldman. And December 9th, Paul Tremblay and Krista Carmen. Who I just saw at wherever I was last. Oh yeah, Stoker Con. And I think I'd met her, but she's really lovely. So I'm glad she's coming to read for us. But our next reader, as Amy spoiled, I was going to say in the bio. No, AC was just won the Stoker for her amazing novelette, which he is not reading from. She will be reading from her current book. A.C. Wise is the author of the novels Wendy Darling, Hooked, and her most recent, Ballad of the Bone Road, which is what you'll be reading from? Yes. Good, okay. Published in January. She's also the author of various novellas, collections and short stories, and her work has won Sunburst and has been a finalist for the Nebula Award. Stoker, World Fantasy, now winner of Stoker, but she's also been a finalist for the World Fantasy, Shirley Jackson, and Locus Awards, among others. Along with her fiction, she contributes regular review columns to Locus and Apex Magazine on short fiction, which is much needed because no one ever reviews it, or hardly anyone does. She just won the Bram Stoker for superior achievement for her novelette, Wolf Moon, Anthony Moon. Please welcome A.C. Wise. And finish buying Nick's books. Take them home.
All right, thank you. I'm excited to be back at KGB. As Ellen said, I'm going to be reading from my most recent. Oh, that's really bright. I feel like I'm being interrogated. My most recent novel, Ballad of the Bone Road, which came out in January. I'm going to read 2 short chapters. It's kind of set in like an alternate version of New York City and New York State. So I'm going to be reading 2 of the chapters that take place in New York State with a preacher who's kind of, losing his faith in God and praying fervently, and something other than God is listening, and that's kind of how it goes. I don't have any books to sell, but I do have some very pretty postcards and bookmarks that I'm going to leave here if anybody wants to grab one. It's a selfish thing when the preacher asks God for a miracle. The whole point of faith is belief without proof, without reciprocation, asking for nothing, but he's struggling. In his heart, he has sinned. He's shaken. All he needs is one little sign, which is why he's on his knees in the hayloft above the old barn. The space below the rafters, used primarily for storage now, smells like dust and the memory of animals. The boards are hard and his body aches. He's been here for over an hour, hands clasped, nearing desperation. The open door of the hayloft gives him a perfect view over the rolling fields, the blue-purple dark of the starless sky and the faint outline of the trees beyond. The wind whispers as it stirs across the grasses. A bitter man might think it was mocking him. He still has hope that he was made for something greater. All his life he's felt that he can help people, lead them to a good path, save their souls. He saved his wife from her past, but he can do more. Deep down, he fears it is his own weakness holding him back. He's plagued by visions. Vivid images assault him every time he closes his eyes. A woman whose form shifts and writhes and refuses to settle walks through cold, empty halls, past a feast table covered in rotten food. Her mouth is blood and pomegranates, her teeth impossibly sharp. She wears a crown of glass that grows straight out of her skull. Her feet are bare. The hem of her dress makes a horrid sound as it slithers across the floor. Too often in the mornings he wakes freezing, all the covers kicked off his body, his breath hanging condensed in the air, though winter is months away. There are stories of unholy things that ride men in the night, steal them from their beds and drive them to exhaustion, weakening them and leaving them open to sin. The good book itself has stories of prophets who cast out demons, who were chosen to lead their people to a better life. Is it so unreasonable to believe he could be one of those men? If only God would answer him, then he might know that he is blessed and not cursed. But in the cold hours, when night bleeds slowly from the sky and the sun hasn't yet risen, his dreams linger. He cannot get warm. In those hours, he knows that the woman with a glass crown and horrible mouth has chewed away his love and left a hollow in its place. It is the reason, it must be, that he does not love his wife anymore. She is a good woman, his partner, his helpmeet. It is as true now as when he first asked for her hand. He should be grateful, but he does not feel it anymore. At the same time, his flock, no matter how close-knit, no matter how faithful, is dwindling. The town's population is aging, and the children who should replace them move away, seduced by the city. And then there is Ava. He is filled with her. She is the antithesis of the woman in his dreams. At times, the preacher wonders whether she is the miracle he's asked for. Ava has grown ever closer to his church, despite the sorrows life has heaped upon her. She used to attend with her parents, and then her older sister after her mother fell ill and her father left. Now she comes alone. Her trials have only deepened Ava's faith, and grief has made her lovely. In the privacy of his mind, sitting in the darkness of the confessional booth, waiting for parishioners who rarely seek him out anymore, he has done terrible things to her. He's torn the buttons from her blue morning dress, rucked her skirts up and taken her against the pulpit, ravished her between the pews and in the neat iron-bound boneyard, penetrating her with his fingers and his tongue, leaving her nails to gouge furrows in the earth between the cold, silent graves. This is the woman's doing as well, with her hungry mouth and jagged glass crown. Her long white fingers creep and seek, testing for chinks in his faith, gaps in his armor. When he turns away from one temptation, she offers another, searching for a way in. If God does not answer him soon, the preacher is afraid of what he might do. How long before he falls? How long before he lashes out and takes from those around him to feed the terrible ache inside? Wind hisses over the grass. There's a crick in his neck from keeping his head bowed. His voice is hoarse, lips cracked and dry. Please, God, he says, if you're there, if you're listening, give me this. I need this now. His words betray him. He means to say, I know you're there, God. I know you're listening. I know I don't deserve your grace or your mercy, but I humbly beg it anyway. His heart thuds, beating as if to shatter his ribs. Surely God must see how desperate his servant has become. Please, he whispers. At last, something answers him. Above the low murmur of the wind, there's a rustling, crackling like flames burning in a fireplace, and brilliance follows. The preacher raises a hand to shield his eyes. Above the tree hangs an orb like the sun, only paler, lower, closer to the ground. The topmost branches almost touch it, like hands raised in prayer. The light continues to grow. Then he understands it's because the orb is speeding towards him. He throws himself flat against the hayloft floor in a moment of pure panic, of which he is immediately ashamed. The barn shudders, a soundless clap of thunder, shaking dirt and bird shit and feathers from the rafters. The preacher covers his head, squeezes his eyes closed. For the first time in a very long time, he is not thinking about Ava. He's not thinking about 2 long teeth and a red-stained mouth. When the shaking stops, he raises his head. Everything is terribly still, terribly alive. He's aware of the grass and the field, roots stretching into the earth, leaves yearning towards the sky. He feels the warmth of the animals in the newer barn and his wife asleep in the farmhouse. All he has to do is reach out, and he will feel every soul in every house, every fallen and lapsed parishioner waiting for him to gather them. The preacher pushes himself upright and hurries to the ladder, half tumbles, half climbs down into the barn. Just inside the open doors, his son, his sign, his prayed-for miracle, lies nestled on the ground. The light is silvery gold, ice and pearls. It is no shade he can name. It is every color and no color at once, warm and cool. It hums ever so faintly, not quite music yet, but something joyous that wants to become a song. It is everything. He can just make out what looks like feathers, like a dozen or more doves all nestled together. Even as he looks, it changes. A tangle of vines, a crown of thorns, a shallow bowl. It is a chalice filled with clear water, a hissing ball of snakes, a seed. He kneels and stretches out his hands, ready to be burned to ash if that is God's will. Tears shine on his cheeks. The preacher bows his head, thanking God, and listens with every ounce of his being to hear what his miracle will say. And then a few months later, another short chapter. The preacher doesn't ask for the second miracle. It comes to him unbidden, further proof that God has forgiven him all his sins. There's evidence already in the swelling numbers of his congregation. He hasn't even shared with them the miracle of the light yet, but they can feel the change and promise in the air. When he stands at the pulpit and looks over their faces, turned towards him in rapt attention, they know God works through him, and they are bathed in his reflected glow. His church has become a locus, his congregation bringing friends and neighbors back into the fold. A few curious strangers have even begun to appear in the pews, like trees yearning towards the sun. The air in the church crackles with promise, like the moments before a storm. It's a struggle every day not to burst forth with the good news, but he's being patient. When the moment is right, he will know. Clarence hears it first in the restless wind. It calls his name, so he leaves Cordelia tying up rows of tomato plants in their garden to follow. The day is bright and clear. A faint sheen of sweat clings to him by the time he reaches the churchyard. Shadows from the old oak twist across the green lawn, and he feels, overwhelmingly, that his miracle needs him. As he enters the church to find Ava sitting in the foremost pew, he enters the church to find Ava sitting in the foremost pew, her head bent in prayer. There's something different about her today. The sun is shining a warm gold, but the light falling over Ava reminds him of his miracle, still tucked safely inside the barn. More than simply illuminating her, the light seems to lay a hand against the back of Ava's neck, across the first knob of her spine, visible above the collar of her blue dress, the one he's dreamt of so many times. Without words, his miracle is showing him the way. Here, this, she is set aside for you. Your dreams, your desires, they are not wrong, they are your destiny. Fresh heat prickles beneath his armpits. Ava's braid, the color of winter wheat, snakes down her back. He longs to take it in his hands. He almost backs out through the doorway, startled by his need, but Ava turns, and the smile that breaks across her face is like sunshine through clouds. Preacher Warren, I'm so glad to see you. He's told her to call him Clarence so many times, or Brother Clarence, if she must be formal, but it never seems to stick. She rises, steps towards him, and a shadow falls across her features. Oh, but you're busy. I can come back another time. Beneath the first, Clarence sees another deeper shadow, sorrow, the loss of her family. He sees her heartsick, missing of her sister. He lays his fingers on her wrist, almost of their own volition, as she ducks her head apologetically and makes to step around him. No, not at all. You're always welcome here. In fact, is everything all right? Clarence feels her concern like a palpable thing. He shuts his eyes. He needs to be sure. And it's there, the voice of his miracle, a joyous clarion call rushing to answer his doubts and sweep them away. Yes, yes, now, it is time, go! He opens his eyes. Like a hand pressed at the small of his back, he feels propelled closer to Ava. Yes, thank you, he says, his voice even now. Everything is quite all right. I'm glad you're here. There's something I'd like to show you. Her mouth forms an O of surprise. Clarence's heart tumbles behind his ribs, but she doesn't pull away. She trusts him. Will you come with me? Ava nods shyly. He keeps hold of one of her hands and leads her out into the sunshine. She doesn't question him or ask where they're going. He leads her the long way around Cordelia's family property, far wide of the field where his wife may still be working the soil, rinds of dirt under her nails. They climb the gentle slope of the hill to the old barn. Long grass brushes against their legs. Clarence squeezes Ava's hands and he feels a moment of regret. He was wrong about Cordelia. Here is his perfect helpmeet. But that isn't Cordelia's fault. It was his mistake. He should have seen it. Then he could have put her aside gently, found some other place for her. But there's too much happening now. There isn't time. 5 years ago, Cordelia woke to terrible cramps, the sheets beneath her sodden with blood. She hadn't even known she was with child. Clarence sees what he couldn't then. It was a sign. He doesn't blame her. He never would. Even if he doesn't love his wife anymore, he still feels affection for her. He wishes things could be otherwise. If only he'd listened to his instincts, gone farther instead of staying his hand against Cordelia's sister. He forbade her from returning to the land, but he should have done more. Her memory haunts it now. It soured Cordelia's womb, drove his flock away. It's all so clear to him now. The light of his miracle has shown him the way. He needs to eradicate her completely, drive her and the demon inside of her out of the world altogether. Yes, his miracle agrees. Together, we will do this work together. Together, with Ava by his side. Are you ready? He asks. The air thrums as they step into the barn. A breeze lifts strands of hair from Ava's face. The smell of dust greets them, along with his miracle. A soft gasp emerges from Ava, and her cheeks flush pink in the miracle's light. It isn't fear he sees in her face, it's awe. May I? She asks. Clarence lets her fingers slip from his hand. She approaches the miracle and after a moment begins to sway. Her hand goes to the back of her neck, her fingers digging into her skin. The miracle isn't just shining on her, the light is inside her as well, just beneath the surface. If she dug her nails deep enough, she could peel her flesh away until only brightness remained. A faint moan escapes her lips. She lets her head fall back, her hands pressed to her waist now, cradling her belly. She tugs at her clothing, stumbles over the buttons at her collar, getting two undone and peeling the fabric away. Her back arches, eyes closed. There's sweat in the hollow of her throat, illuminated by the miracle's glow. Clarence watches her, enraptured. Beyond the barn doors, the sky falls towards twilight. The evening will be cool, but Ava writhes as if caught in the full heat of a midsummer's day. Her body rocks faster, one hand at her throat, the other continuing to tug at her clothes. Ecstasy. Clarence's traitorous body recognizes every sense of the word. Heat pulses at his groin, his cock stiffening, the desire to rut like a base animal threatening the sanctity of this moment. Ava bunches the fabric of her skirt between her legs. Her body twists impossibly with a force that seems like it should snap her spine. All at once she drops to the ground, rolling onto her back, clawing at the fabric of her dress and tearing it, head tossing from side to side, lips moving soundlessly. Possession, he thinks, as she shakes. Her heels drum the floor. Possession, but not the kind to be feared. Clarence drops as well, clasping his hands in prayer. Ava's legs splay wide, like a woman giving birth, like a woman in the act of copulation. Her hips lift upward as the light crawls over her, thin tendrils, branches, roots wrapping around her, entering her, filling her. Her mouth opens wide, impossibly wide, her whole being shuddering with a silent scream. Her loneliness, her wanting, answered in a single holy act from his miracle, stitching her back together again and making her whole. All the lust in Clarence is snuffed in a single breath. He understands, finally. She is the vessel, pure and perfect, that will bring his miracle fully into the world. Clarence's cheeks are wet with tears as he crawls across the dusty barn floor to Ava's side. He seeks her hand, catches it, and presses it hard between his own. She turns her head towards him. Sweat plasters hair to her cheeks and brow. She looks happy, exhausted. He smooths the hair from her eyes with a gentle touch. Yes, she says, I am ready. Together, they will birth a new world. Titan, yes. It is out now. Came out in January. Like I said, I have postcards and bookmarks if anyone wants them.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have been listening to the Fantastic Fiction at KGB reading series. Check out our website at kgbfantasticfiction.org and click on support if you'd like to help keep the series going. Anyway, that's our show. Thanks for listening and see you next month.